Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for coming to watch. So, we got you guys an update on a very impactful system that is currently moving through the Eastern U.S., which will eventually turn into a big snowstorm as it moves into the Northeast. We also got big changes coming up in our weather pattern as February looks very, very active, and we're going to be talking about El Nino and just where we are when it comes to our El Nino season. All right, so thank you all for joining me here on this Saturday night. We've got a lot to talk about in this video. Alright, so it may be a long one, but let's just get right into things and take a look here at your current radar. Got one storm that's impacting the United States right now. You just got a little bit of energy on the west coast here, but it's nothing really to worry about. Maybe some minor flooding issues out on the coast of Northern California, Oregon, and up to Washington State, but other than that, we should be fine. Our main attention is down here in the south, where we have strong to severe thunderstorms moving their way across the deep south. I really don't think that the tornado threat or any severe threat is going to be that high. As for going forward from now until tomorrow, I think the severe threat has definitely decreased since earlier today. But you've got a big storm system bringing a lot of heavy rain into portions of the Ohio River Valley, and then areas off to the east will definitely see that rainfall, but I think there could be some flooding concerns. Some people may see a few inches of rain from the system, so please be aware of any potential impacts from that system. Right, so move on here to our alerts. You can see we've got nothing much going on. It's been so crazy, the weather in the past few weeks, that it's kind of crazy to see how inactive we are now all of a sudden, but that just means that February is going to be very, very active, and that's what we're dealing with. So right now, we actually winter storm warnings, I believe, going out for the interior portions of North Carolina. Guys, these are for the counties that are in the upper elevations. All right, and you can see that there's even a severe weather threat near here, but there's Gallenberg. All right, I know that these are mountainous regions, guys. All right, and there's specific counties, specific areas that are under winter storm warnings. Surrounding areas, it's just going to be rain and severe weather. All right, but you got winter storm warnings for the upper elevations of the interior portions of North Carolina. You got flood watches going out for portions of Western Virginia into West Virginia in that green area. Same thing for northwestern Georgia under a flood watch. All right, so please keep an eye out for those flooded roads. Stay off those roadways as much as possible. I don't think we're seeing any, flash flood warnings yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some, especially because we have a flash flood watch, or just a regular flood watch, I should say, in place. In this gray shade, we have dense fog advisories. Still seeing some foggy conditions out there in the upper Midwest. Although the fog has definitely started to move out and starting to clear up a little bit. It was so foggy earlier this week where I live in. I'm on the East Coast. I'm on Long Island. And so we just saw a few days straight of dense fog in the Eastern U.S. All right, but in the Northeastern U.S., where things get a little more active, you've got areas of northern Massachusetts that are currently under winter storm watches. Same thing for southern Vermont, New Hampshire. I'm not sure about Vermont, but there are winter storm warnings in some counties out there into extreme western Massachusetts, like the Worcester Hills. All right, definitely possible that we'll see some big impacts there. All right, and then off to, if you're in upstate central New York State, you've got some counties that are under winter weather advisories, and same thing for northern PA. But I think the main attention with the system will definitely be for areas that are currently under winter storm watches. All right, and other than that, we should be good for the most part. So we'll move on here to the NAV 3-cam model for the Northeastern U.S. We're taking a look at this big system coming up. All right, we're going to break this down hour by hour, all right, because this is not going to bring rainfall. It's going to bring snow for some areas, all right? I don't think on the coastline we're going to see snow. All right, but this will definitely bring snow to some areas, so let's figure this out. All right, so starting out here, this is your pattern. We'll talk about your overall pattern. This is right now. You've got high pressure kind of blocking the storm from entering the far interior northeast, but you've got high pressure right here. It's going to affect the system slightly, all right? But you've got cold air hanging around. You've got cold air. This is your 540 line. This is behind any precipitation behind this line, or near it at least, you'll see winter precipitation. So that's getting down to those areas that we saw under winter weather advisories, winter storm watches as well. All right, but notice how the warm air surge starts to come up, and we start to see, a lot of warm air enter areas of the mid-Atlantic and southern New England. That's not favorable for any snowfall. It's too moist up in the atmosphere, and it's too, it's too warm on the ground level. But here's your low coming up at south. It's 1,005 millibars. You got thunderstorms moving across the Ohio River Valley. Thunderstorms coming out from North Carolina. Other than that, it's just going to be a rainy night. All right, so maybe some rumbles of thunder, maybe some flashes of lightning, but that's going to be it for the most part. And then by 2 a.m. tonight into tomorrow, this is the middle of the night, and it's going to start raining very heavily into portions of Virginia, into Delmarva, and then it'll start to rain slightly into portions of PA, New Jersey, and then eventually into New York City. And then by 4 a.m., this is when this is going to start changing over to winter precipitation. All right, you've got a low, all right, here, a trough that's trying to take on a negatively tilted look to it. All right, it's not a very strong system, not very dynamic, but you got 1,002 millibar low, which is pretty strong. All right, definitely for a winter storm, but you've got warm air. Look at how much warm air is just surging up because of the system. You can see even those isobars are really just wrapping into that low pressure center, but it's going to bring warm air up farther north. So areas that are farther south are simply just not going to see snow. All right. But here's heavy rain. This is very heavy rain, guys, moving across D.C. This is going to be moving into Philadelphia, but Virginia and the Delmarva area, really watch out for in the morning. It's going to be very, very wet downpours. But notice in these upper elevations in the hills of, southern New York State, we start to see that little bit of snowfall start to show up. And because it's so close to that warm front, that tells you that there's probably some cold air aloft, all right? And so that moisture content may not be as significant, and we really just see a lot of cold air start to rebound in this area. And then by 6 a.m., we still got those thunderstorms raging across portions of the Delmarva. It's going to be raining like crazy out there in Philadelphia, D.C., very early in the morning tomorrow morning. But you've got heavy snow breaking out over portions of northern PA, southern New York State. I would argue for western Massachusetts, maybe even northwestern Connecticut, to see a few rounds of heavy snow. And this actually gets a little bit more intense. And this gets to areas farther south. This, not saying it's going to make it to New York City. I wouldn't count on it, guys. It won't. It's just not going to happen. But this is going to go into central, maybe even south central portions of Pennsylvania, down into southern New York State, not New York City, and then maybe even to portions of western Connecticut. But watch as that heavy rain, the heart of that low pressure, areas to the east of there, that's where you're going to see all this rainfall. All this rainfall is bringing up moisture with it. So any place that's in the path of this rainfall is going to change over to rainfall. It's just simply going to be too warm for snow because the system is bringing in too much warm air and moisture. All right, and so here it comes, and by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, it's going to be downpouring out there into southern New England. But you've got very heavy snow and maybe some, we're going to see banding probably set up here in a northern PA, southern New York State. It's a pretty nasty looking storm system, just a very wet weekend. This would be very wet snow, guys. All right, but this really gets going as a winter storm by midday tomorrow, and this could actually bring some significant impacts for a winter storm standpoint here for all of Massachusetts. Now we can see heavy snow breaking out over all of Massachusetts, upstate and central portions of New York State, Finger Lakes region, and northern PA. Everybody's going to start to see snow here, but still no snow into southern New England and into the mid-Atlantic. All right, but I think some backside energy as the system rotates around, all the precipitation rotates around that low. That's where we could get that backside snow. That always delivers for some. Whenever we get a non-coastal low, all right, that brings a lot of rain to those coastal regions, but snow to the interior Northeast. You may get lucky. A lot of people get lucky where on the backside of the system, if it's rotating enough and it's slow enough, that you could get caught up in some backside piece of energy with cold air spilling in, because after that warm air starts to, move out with the system. Remember, the warm air is moving up with that low. It's bumping up on that low because of that warm air. All right, if you've got warm air that's pushing up with that low, which is far off the coast at this point. That's going to allow for all this cold air that's really trying to. I'm telling you guys, the cold air is trying to sneak its way down to the northeast, but it can't because the warm air is just too intense. After that warm air moves out, this is all going to spill in and it's going to fall down south right behind the system. So that's going to really change all that backside precipitation over to snowfall. And it's not going to be heavy because it's light precipitation. It's backside precipitation. The heaviest precipitation is just around and to the east of that low pressure center. But I would say the very early morning hours of Monday, all right, or Monday, there's a chance that you could get some snow flurries out there into southern New England. This would go for New York City, Long Island, Jersey coast, and then areas to the north. It's not going to be anything crazy, but you will see a leftover snow shower or two with very cold air that's going to be in place. All right, you don't really see any. Excuse me, you don't really see any signs of warm air coming back. Obviously, because the system is going to leave behind some very cold air with just a big Arctic plunge coming in and dry air as well. This is not going to. It's going to be very dry. All right, it's not going to be. It's not going to be warm, and it's not going to be dry, or it's not going to be warm. It's not going to be wet. All right. So we take a look here at our current projected rainfall totals. This is not on our snow totals, but we're going for rain. About 1 inch to 2 inches, but notice those areas up north that will see snow. We still see that signal for up to 1 inch of rainfall because this is going to come in as rainfall, but then it's going to change over to that snowfall. All right, so you can see we could be dealing with right around 1 inch of rain for a lot of people out here, guys. It's looking like in this purple shade. If you're in this pink or purple shade, just go for about 1 inch to 1.5 inches rain. Nothing crazy. Maybe some flooding here and there, minor flooding, guys. All right, but definitely be aware of that situation, southern New England as well. All right, but I would say there's some spots here in the southwestern PA where we're going for maybe a little bit, just over 2 inches of rainfall. That's possible, maybe even down here into Virginia and West Virginia. I think it's more possible down into Virginia because we saw how heavy the rainfall is and it's sticking around for a few hours. I just think that if we see the system become more slow moving, we're going to see more rain just get dumped on this area. But even into the interior northeast, upstate New York, still anywhere from quarter to half an inch of rainfall. Same thing for really areas just north of northern Massachusetts and then up into Vermont, New Hampshire. Nothing too crazy, all right? So, snowfall totals, all right? Here it is, yeah, and it's a banger, all right? You saw those areas? I mean, the NAM, this was overdone. I think this is definitely overdone, maybe by a few inches at most. But the NAM is going for up to a foot of snow in the northern PA. That's crazy, guys. But I mean, I think if we were to put a foot of snow in the picture, I would say there's no doubt that the National Weather Service would issue at least a winter storm watch. All right, so the fact that there isn't one out already just tells me that this is definitely hyped up. This is overdone. So I would reduce these totals by at least 1.5 inches. So I would say going about up to 10 inches for areas of northern PA. Down into central PA, though, we could be talking about maybe 6 to 8 inches. And then really we see 8 to 10 inches on the NAM spreading out into central New York State down to southern New York State, where we see that signal for several inches of snow. Some areas, I mean, the NAM is going for some areas seeing up to 10 inches of snow, which I really just think is overdone. But I would argue 6 to 8 inches in this area. But here's that backside energy, and I think this is also overdone. But the NAM is supporting 1 to 2 inches for areas of Long Island. Maybe some areas could see 3 inches if you get lucky. Same thing for northern New Jersey, Jersey coast, seeing about 1 to 2 inches. But here you go into portion of Massachusetts. There's that more widespread snow for the whole state, really. I would say 6 to 8 inches. Some areas may see higher totals. Boston going for about 4 to 6 inches, I would say. Maybe a little bit less. All right, but there's Connecticut, northern Connecticut, looking like you may be one of those areas that could actually end up with 10 or maybe even more inches of snow. Same thing for northern Rhode Island. Really, Rhode Island, I would say about 6 to 8 inches in general. but up into Vermont, New Hampshire, still 2 to 4 inches is definitely possible. Um, but again, I think that these totals are a little bit overdone, especially for these areas that are going for a foot of snow. And I think that we're not going to see this much snow out in New York City and Long Island. So, you know, I definitely I don't want to get you guys annoyed. All right, I just really would not count on this system being one of those ones that just brings a nice amount of snow. This is not going to be. It's probably going to be a coating to an inch of snow for these areas in the southern New England. All right, so that takes care of that forecast for your storm. What's going on behind it? Well, we're going to be taking a pretty extended look into February because I think the models just have really been pinpointing something that I think that we can definitely look at as and just say that it will be a favorable pattern for upcoming snowstorms. All right. So we take a look here. We're looking at our current height anomalies on the European model. Basically, what this tells you when you have these warmer colors of red, orange, yellow, and then browns here, that signifies high pressure, which basically means that you're going to get dry weather. But if you see these cooler colors like blue, green, and sometimes even pink, all right, that signifies low pressure and storms. All right, so we're basically looking at what our jet stream pattern is, because here's your jet stream in this blue line here, but also if there's going to be any storminess. So we'll take this out to the rest of January here. This is January. This is Monday here. All right, here's Monday, and you've got a trough that's swinging down through the southern United States. But notice that you're starting to see a ridge start to bump up here into the central United States. Now, if this ridge becomes stronger up into Canada, that's going to allow for a lot of cold air with storms to start to, move across the southern and central states. And that would also support this jet stream here. If, like, let's say we start to see a ridge start to bump up on the jet stream here, it can't continue to bump up all the way up into the northeast. So all this jet stream is going to do is just start to dip. That's where we see the cold air begin to move in. So this is what we may end up with what could be a negative NAO phase, where we see warm air in the west bumping up into Canada, and we see cold air diving down through the eastern and northern states there, and that would definitely support some big snowstorms. Just really got to figure this out. But we'll take this out to the rest of January, but this ridge doesn't get up into Canada enough. But you got a lot of southern stream energy starting to come through the United States, but you still see those dips in the jet stream. You still got a slight dip in the jet stream, and this would certainly allow for Arctic air to start to move down. So what you may end up with, you may start to see just a few little shots of cold air that would be for the Northeast. All right. So this is where I'm telling you guys, I think that the first half of February, I think there may be sometime in that time frame, there may be a nor'easter. All right, I think that this pattern coming up may be favorable for nor'easter, because if we see dips in the jet stream more frequently than we have been dealing with, which would lead to more cold air in place more often, and we see that southern storm track really become amplified, I think if those two components meet and just come up together, that's really the recipe for a big snowstorm. And for those coastal regions, just that's more specific to figure out when you get a system. But just in general, if we see that driving pattern come together really and just perform out in the Northeast, that could really support a big snowstorm. But here it comes. You see all these blues here. This is low pressure. You see a bunch of troughs moving through, big storms coming out of the west. But that ridge is still with us into February. And guys, the European model run last night was incredible how much it was pinpointing this. But this is the 12Z run from today. You still have that ridge bumping up into Canada. Here it is, and it's still very strong. But you're starting to see more opening there in the United States, which will lead to more storms coming through like this. And you've got cold air coming down into the Northeast. That's just going to meet up for snowstorms in that area. That has snowstorms written all over it. I'm pinpointing that area for just a very active second half of winter. But I don't want to get too far out, obviously. All right, but I just think I have a strong, I have a hunch that this is gonna happen. All right. But we end this run with tons of storms moving through the southern United States. You just see storm after storm move through the central and southern United States, and you still see those dips in the jet stream in the Northeast. This is a classic El Nino pattern. This is, if you look at my winter season forecast, this is exactly what we expected. We see nothing but dry and warmer weather in the northern United States. All right, so we're going to see probably warmer than average temperatures and drier than average temperatures in the north central United States. Now, if we see that shift over to the west a little bit, where we see more of the ridge being over here rather than where it is on your screen, then we would see probably a bigger and more extensive dip in the jet stream that would just allow for more cold air to spill in. But either way, I think the eastern states, the areas along the eastern seaboard, it's going to be a favorable second half of winter. If depending on if this pattern plays out or not. All right. So we take a look at the GFS model. Take a look at what we could expect with any upcoming snowstorms or any storms in general. Here comes that first system. All right, moves to the northeast. There it goes. Been watching a Clipper system that is now pretty much certain to happen. It doesn't look that intense. Clippers are definitely not that intense. It's not uncommon to see clippers, but here it comes, 1,008 millibars. Just bring some lake effect snow, some snow down into the Mid-Atlantic, maybe even into the Carolinas. All right, that brings in a lot of cold air with it, though. We're gonna, with any disturbance, any storm system, we're probably going to see cold air and, jet stream dips, and there it is, all right? And you've got two blocking highs. This is going to allow for the north central United States to stay very dry and very warm. You're not going to see any storms in this region for a while if we see this pattern play out. And what that means, you're going to see a lot of storms in this area, all right? This is where we're going to see the most active storminess. This is just not an area that's going to see that snowfall as much than what we just saw in the past few weeks. All right, and these high pressure systems, they block out any of these storms, and you just see every single one of these storms takes that southern jet stream, and I've been tracking the storm system potentially that's moving through the southern United States. And you may be thinking like, oh, wow, this is that pattern that we were talking about, all right, where you do have cold air in the northeast. Look at this cold air, all right? You've got a big dip in the jet stream, guys. This is very cold air that's moving into the northeast, all right? This is your pattern, but you've got a storm system that's starting to flatten out a little bit, taking a positively tilted trough kind of look that's moving through the southern United States. And the reason why this won't be moving through the northeast on the GFS, this is what the GFS is showing, is because of the high pressure. The high pressure is strong. It's 1,032 millibars, so that's going to block the system from entering or just moving up north. So the GFS has the system bringing some rainfall into the southeastern United States. All right. So after that, we're getting pretty far out. We're getting into the medium term, but we see if there's anything else that can really catch our eye. And I haven't been watching any specific system other than that one we just talked about. But there's a signal for another one, maybe a strong one. A little bit later into February, the latest run of the GFS doesn't have this becoming anything major, but we still see a lot of snow. And this one does take more of a northerly track, so we do actually end up with eventually some precipitation up north, according to the latest GFS. But if you look at past storms, guys, anything before that, you don't really see any precipitation in this area. So I'm going to tell you guys right now, I think we may enter maybe even a drought. I don't know, but maybe this could be so significant that there could even be a drought, guys, in the northern United States. I wouldn't count on it, and I don't want to, talk about that and get too specific, but I just think we're going to see below average below average precipitation in this area in general. All right. So, what does the European model show? Well, the European model is a little different. It shows basically the same as the GFS, but it's that system we were talking about that was taking that southern stream energy, but was getting blocked by a high up there in the northeast. All right, well, here it comes. There it is, taking that positively tilted trough look to it. All right, but where's that high pressure? You don't see any high pressure nearby in the northeast, but you've got cold air. You've got cold air really starting to just, move into the northeast, along with that system taking that coastal, track. All right, so this would be a favorable pattern or a pattern I shouldn't say, but a favorable track for a nor'easter. So you've got a strong, growing 979 millibar low pressure system. You could argue that this would be the same strength as a Category 1 hurricane. All right. So you would have strong winds on the coastal waters because this is rotating, bringing big waves into the Carolina coastline. No winter precipitation yet, but this just completely bombs out, and the storm system isn't close enough to that cold air source that it becomes a huge blizzard, but you get a nasty ice storm and just a nasty winter storm with no snow for areas of the North Carolina coastline up towards Delmarva, and we've been watching a signal for this system, seeing what the European model has been showing, and this moves up in the northeast, gets very strong, 962 millibars. That's like that's a high-end Category 2 hurricane. That's insane. Very dynamic system. Now starts to bring in some more snow into the northeast, but just not enough cold air with that system. And it's too strong to really, for that cold air to move in. But you definitely have a lot of warm air with that system. Very strong system to end off the European run. All right. So finally, for the last part of the update, just going to be taking a look at El Nino here. So we talked about that big pattern change. We talked about what the models are showing in the next few days. But, what's going to be happening beyond that? Well, as you guys know, we're in an El Nino season, which means that the Pacific Ocean waters are warmer than average, and we see an extended southern Pacific jet stream, which means storms are going to start to take a track through the southern United States. All right? So, we're taking a look month by month into the future of, the chances of basically our climatological season. So you could see, this is December here. We had 100% chance of seeing El Nino. We obviously did, and into January we still see that El Nino. But notice how we start to see a decrease as we get into February. But look at this. Now we get into March, and March takes a huge dip. There's a big signal for El Nino to slow down dramatically here, and we see a 55% chance. So this is almost a 50% chance that we'll still have an El Nino pattern in March. That is crazy. So this may be towards the end of our El Nino season, because look at that drop. All right, look at that. All right, so after February, we go back to a neutral season, because look at this. We have a neutral bar going up pretty high. Now we have just about a 48% chance of being in a neutral season, and then by April, look at the chances. You see a 20% chance of El Nino and about a 73% chance of being in a neutral phase, guys. So I really think that, based off of this is based off this forecast, all right, there's a really good chance that we're going to be dealing with a neutral phase getting into eventually into spring, and then we'll talk about summer soon. But here's May, but notice this blue line starts to come up too. That is a La Nina, and that is what we could enter going into the summer and spring season. Look at that. You see this neutral bar goes up pretty high into April, but this blue line here, the La Nina chances really start to rise getting into the summer season, and then by, we're very far out. All right, but this is a forecast or not a forecast, but probabilities based off of NOAA here, and we go into June here. This is July, and then into August. we potentially could be dealing with a 65% chance of a La Nina. So look at that big change, all right? This is a big pattern change. This is going to change weather worldwide. So this is very important, guys, in the weather community to see just this, chance of a big um, season change, I guess, if you want to put it that way. All right. So finally, we look at the European model. We look at our. This is basically your jet stream here. We'll take a look at how strong it is, but this is very far up in the atmosphere. So just wanted to show you guys how strong it is. You've got winds that are getting up to 160 knots up in the atmosphere. You've got just a very strong Pacific jet stream, but notice how we saw that signal for that Pacific jet stream to get stronger and more amplified getting into February with that pattern change. Well, here's February 4th, and there it is. You've got storms taking this big Pacific jet stream track, but notice how it starts to slant up. It goes up the coast towards the end here. All right, but yes, you've got winds that are up to 160 knots that are up in the atmosphere. So you've got a very strong Pacific jet stream. This is a classic El Nino pattern. All right, but I think this will change once we get just farther into 2024. But yes, this is going to be favorable, guys, for big time snowstorms in the eastern United States and a lot more storminess and a lot more storm action in the southern United States as well. All right, so that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for coming to watch. I'll see you guys in the next video. So stay tuned. I got more updates on this on the way. Let me know what you guys see with that storm system moving through the Eastern U.S. And as always, we'll just keep watching. What our weather pattern is going to be, and then we'll just, as things time out and as we just get closer and closer to spring, we'll see what pattern we may be in getting up to that time frame. All right, so thank you all for coming to watch, and I'll see you guys next video.